Yo, this is Bog Beef from the Good Old Boyz podcast.
And I'm MAAREK from the Good Old Boyz podcast.
Hey, what up, what up? This is already good. Yeah, thanks again.
So I'm at SLAV.
All right, this is Shit Spouter 37.
This is Black.com build.
This is the Fed Post.
It's already good. Yeah, thanks again for having us on the live stream. That was mad fun. That was pretty saucy. I don't really remember a lot of it.
Yeah, it was a good time. We're probably gonna do another big one around like Christmas or
Yeah,
something.
it got real weird right after midnight for some reason. Couple hours there.
Yeah.
Those
At 4 a.m. it got weird.
those beautiful few hours while Trump was victor.
Yeah. But yeah, I remember just, I do remember at least for a moment I was just like, all right, we need to be cautious. I can't get too excited. I was getting too excited. I definitely got too excited, but I was like, you never know what might happen. It could flip in a couple days. But yeah, just watching you guys were one of the few that I was seeing pointing out how ridiculous the whole thing was, because it was this whole fucking gaslighting of oh, there's nothing weird going on.
Yeah.
I remember you guys being like MAAREK with the North Carolina thing, the vote delay, you know what I mean? It was just yo, this is a fucking joke. They're not even fucking trying. This is pathetic. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. The whole thing was fucking weird. But I don't know. I think the biggest thing I wanted to talk about with you guys was the whole, I think the GOP betraying Trump element of it, which, when I was talking about they're going to rig him out or there's going to be a coup or whatever. And only a few people I know were really talking about that, you and Marty. And they were basically telling me, why would the fucking Republicans betray Trump? He's one of them. Why would they do that? And I'm like, you're fucking retarded. He's not one of them. I mean, look, to whatever degree, I'm sure there's some right wing argument that he's kind of, folded to the neocons to whatever degree over the last 4 years. Sure. But I mean, he's not one of, it's clear that they want him out. And now, after this whole thing, that's not even debatable anymore in my mind. But I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you guys make of that? As far as that whole dynamic between the neocons and Trump?
They never wanted him in the first place. They went to great lengths to keep him out, and half of them became Democrats after his election. So I don't think anybody at this point who doesn't see that doesn't want to see it.
Yeah, remember 2016? Just Fox News' coverage of him in the primary.
Right, but it's okay. So one thing about Trump is that he's all over the place, right? So anybody listening to this can say, well, I have 14 articles here of him doing stuff in line with the party, and it's yeah, I know, yeah, he's all over the place, right? He's one guy, and then he's another guy. Okay, so our big theme of our podcast is patronage, and one of the things about patronage is that everybody in the last since 2014 2015, one of the big hip things, everybody thinks in systems. Everyone thinks in these big grant you don't think about things in terms of individual. You think about systemic oppression, systemic racism, right? Well, patronage flips back, and you look at things from the individual ruler, and you go from the actual guy sitting in office. So this is a good way to understand the relationship that Trump has with the GOP. Okay, so just imagine. So who are these people we're talking about? So we're talking about governor in Kentucky or a senator in Alabama or something. What's it look like for them? Well, when there's what do you want to do as a politician? You want so to have an easy life. If you're a politician, is to not have to deliver on anything and you stay in office. Okay, and so when Trump's around, you have this. There's first off, you're already in office, right? So the only people we're talking about are incumbent. Anyone who comes after this, who gets voted in on a Q party or whatever, let's set them aside for right now, because that's not who we're talking about. So we're talking about like the people sitting in the office. So the first off, they're an incumbent. They're sitting in office. Incumbents do very well in this country because of gerrymandering and shit, right?
Absolutely.
And so they're there, and now this guy Trump's here, and he's got all these things. He's telling people he's going to do all these things. He's going to build this wall. He's going to do all this shit, and you got all this massive support. People are like, I want these things. Do you have to deliver on these things? Trump's like, well, and it reduces their power. The power of people like Lindsey Graham and all these people, like they have less power when Trump exists. Like, so you don't even have you don't have to look in their heart or anything. They're less powerful when he's there.
Yeah,
of course they want him gone.
Yeah, I remember Lindsey Graham when fucking Trump was running in 2016 being like, oh, my party's going batshit. He just said that in front of everybody, like, I can't believe we're nominating
Trump.
Trump
Doxed him, and the fucking he read his phone number off in one of the debates.
Really?
Yeah. He said this guy was jerking me around or whatever.
He called him a fairy.
Here's his phone number. Let him know how you feel.
No, I mean, he talked shit to all of them to their face during the debates. I mean, that was like, whatever display that is. I mean, there's that. And like, he obviously wasn't going along with everything as far as like the regime change shit.
No.
Bolt and all them. I mean, they always tell me like, oh, well, he stuffed his cabinet full of fucking neocons. I'm like, that shit happens regardless of who's president. Like, the president isn't that powerful. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that type of shit is handed to you. They always said that about Obama. Like, they handed him a list. Like, Wall Street was like, yeah, this is who is going in your cabinet. Like, it's not really too much up to them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just what it is.
Okay, so when you get elected president, right? So there's like a third of the government that you have to run now. The thing is like you can't just like get like random cool people you like to like run
boys.
the Department of Agriculture, whatever.
Yeah.
There's these think tanks will like each of them will have like each of these think tanks will be like you can bring us on and we'll run the government for you.
Right.
And you just literally have to pick one like that. Now, I guess like 20 years ago, you could have like started a think tank and spent a whole bunch of money training up guys that could do that. And okay, but that doesn't exist. You have to.
It's important to note the reason why you have to do that. It's not because these machines are too complicated for like a normal person to operate. It's because the people.
A little bit it is.
No, it's not. It's because the people who work in those bureaucracies are actually running the government, and they can stop the things that the president wants to do very easily. They proved that in the last 4 years, and you have to pick someone that they'll go along with. Or if you don't care about the department, if you want to staff put somebody in charge of, say, the Department of Education that the people in the Department of Education will hate. Well, if you don't like the Department of Education, it's not a bad strategy. I also wonder, and I mentioned this when we were talking to somebody recently on our podcast. Who says you could you just pick a colonel out of the Air Force and make him the Secretary of Defense?
I guess. I mean, well, at least I know he like liberally fired people. I mean, I don't know how,
It's kind of what he's doing right now. In the
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, all the Pentagon people, all the fucking deep state motherfuckers, like he's chopping them off. And like, I mean, who, to whatever, I said this before, like there is a machine, and they even say this on the news or whatever. They'll tell you straight up, they'll be like, yeah, Trump should, he should watch his tone because like we've been here before him and we'll be here after him. Like telling you like, yo, this is it's deeper than you. Like you're only here for 2 terms or whatever. Like there's the swamp or whatever he refers to. So they're just like, you know what I mean? Like you,
right,
you
like who was saying that about like the CIA? Just
it was Schumer, wasn't it?
Yeah, Schumer like on TV just being like, just between you and me, you don't talk about the CIA this way. It's like, you hear the words coming out of your fucking mouth?
What did he say?
After President Trump got elected, but before he took office, Schumer was on TV saying like, hey, I wouldn't mess with the CIA like he's doing. They can, they'll fuck your shit up. And then,
they could regime change you. They could topple you, bro. They do it all the time.
Which might have happened.
What just happened, right?
Well, yeah, they were just like, I don't know. They were just like, I don't know, just saying that he could like he's chopping these people down, but obviously, like, it's sort of performative because they'll just get replaced. There's a million of these fucks. It's just a blob, you know what I mean? So
there's stuff he can do right now that they can't easily walk back, which is kind of what they're like, the troop withdrawals and stuff like that.
Right, exactly.
But I mean, he should have done that shit 4 years ago. However, like the thing about Trump is the thing with everything with Trump is that you look at what he didn't do. That's part of the reason why he I don't say didn't get reelected, but whatever. He all he could offer you was, I'm going to stop doing this horrible shit that they've been doing to you for 4 years. Like, I'm going to stop I'm going to not start a new war. And that is an improvement, but that's not inspiring.
Right. Well,
you're harm reduction, which is what I've always said. He's just literally just harm reduction.
Yeah, you're going to fall in love with a guy who just stops punching you in the face actively. It's not the best. It's not really the best pitch, is it?
Yeah, it's like, but nothing is better than something. But in this scenario, like, no one's going to look for nothing, and they want something.
Yeah.
Could you imagine judging like Bush or Obama on the grounds that people judge Trump? Which
it's a fucking joke.
I mean, well, yeah. I mean, they always just say that he's I just didn't get why because before when he was running, they'd always be like, in 2016, he's not a normal Republican. The media kept saying that all the time. He's not a normal Republican. And then after he's in, all the left tells me is like he's just another Republican. Meanwhile, after he's gone now, Wall Street, Biden and McConnell and all these fucks are close fucking friends. Like, they were all fucking tight because they're the same fucking people. They're the same blob. And like, they're, the Wall Street and all these fucking elites are like, oh, this is actually ideal that we have, Biden as president in this Republican Congress, because now we can go back to not doing shit. And I think the biggest example of that recently was the whole stimulus check, where he was, they wanted this, this fucking bailout fund and this, this COVID money to a bunch of bullshit in all these states. And he was like, no, I just want let's just do the check. Let's just do the check by itself, which is unanimously popular. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. You can't poke any holes in that. There's no pork in that. There's nothing. And McConnell himself was like, no, I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? McConnell prefers fucking Biden in there. You know what I mean? Like, he wants to go back to the fucking gridlock business as usual bullshit, so that they have kayfabe and they can blame each other as an excuse for not doing anything.
And everything bipartisan is terrible too. So all the stuff they will accomplish will be the absolute worst thing that everybody will hate.
Exactly.
To be fair,
and blame each other for it.
I'll say one small pushback on this. To be fair, when Trump called for just the $1,200 checks with no pork, that was like the afternoon. That earlier that day, he was like, yo, no stimulus package at all until after the election. And then people were like, yo, wait, what the fuck? And then he was like, oh, yeah, actually $1,200, no pork. So like, I mean, totally that's great. But I mean, you have to wonder, I mean, obviously that's not something that was his intention in the first place or was really a real concern.
Slippery boy.
Sure. And I don't know how much this ties to the patronage thing that Bog's talking about, but like, in my mind, this was always a thing of like, I trust him more based off what his interests are. I don't think he gives a fuck about anybody. I don't think he's a fucking benevolent motherfucker and working class. I don't think any of that shit, like he's a working class hero. They always say that. I think that. I'm like, you're fucking retarded. I don't fucking think that. I just know what his interests are. His interests in my mind are just his ego or whatever. Yeah. Like he's got money. His ego is the main thing that he's concerned about. His presentation in the media, right? So it's like, they say this all the time about him, the people that hate him. So it's like, he wants that. So he only cares about people and will give people things to the extent that they, stay on his side or they stroke his ego or whatever.
Sure. Which is like a real honest politician. Like, honestly, I prefer that to any of these other fucking scumbags. I know that most of us here do, obviously.
Right. So
that's what I'm saying.
I something I believe is that basically you got it right. So there's it's about the interest. So in terms of like Trump, like remember like Trump thinks that like he's doing the best things like possible for like Wall Street and all this stuff like that. So like any sort of analysis that goes into like what Trump thinks and stuff, like you kind of lose it. What you want and what I think is the only way we're gonna ever get anything as the plebs is to have basically some non-collective power, basically someone that's like, well, I can sort of have king monarchical type power if I make an alliance with the plebs, not like fully, not like they're gonna unfurl a scroll, but like but like like them in Washington, like they can be surrounded by people that hate them in Washington that don't like the way they're running the government, but like they can make individual people happy outside, and they can stay in power for a long time. I want someone that's like, fuck it, I could be in power for 20 years if I just if I just do a couple of these things. I know these fuckers around here won't like it, but this is the only thing I got. Any kind of collective power up top, oligarchical power, like there's nothing that plebs can offer them. This is the whole the PNC thing, right? This is the swamp thing. Like there's no arrangement where we get ahead that way.
Yeah, they don't need them. They don't need us. They're greasing it over. They're massaging it.
We arrived at the Huey Long part of this discussion way quicker than I thought we would.
How so?
Oh, just talking about kind of this kind of centralized. Kind of a benevolent dictator, almost. It's just
I would emphasize it doesn't have to be benevolent, and so benevolent dictators, like benevolent dictators, don't like. Okay, Bernie's benevolent guy, right? And so he didn't do things like I'll fucking run third party if you guys fuck with me, right? And we know how that works. You want someone that's like, well, I've got one shot at becoming very powerful and rich, and that's to I can appease these plebs, and by doing that I can go outside all the power centers that are currently in DC. That would be that's basically, it's like Huey Long wanted to be rich and powerful. He didn't want it to cure cancer and all these things. Like as soon as you start thinking about politics in terms of the sort of like Jesus figure that loves you and stuff, you're fucking up.
Right, like Bernie is this cute grandpa. Don't we love him so much? He's got this.
The bird landed on this podium.
Right.
The bird keep sending them checks, kids. Just keep on mailing that money to them.
Right. It's almost like it's like interests and incentives lining up almost just by happenstance, like the stars is a better way of looking than this idea of like, well, we'll get this guy who's pure of hearts who can, take the sword out of the stone and fix everything. Yeah. It's more just kind of like, the guys who person X over here is, shaking hands with is gonna come out with a bit better outcomes than, person Y over there. Or maybe I'm misinterpreting or putting it that way. But
you got it exactly right. So there's a couple people who've done this in history. So Julius Caesar is one of the big ones. I love Julius Caesar. I talk about him all the time. So Julius Caesar was basically, he came up. He was a guy that was he came up as a PMC, as an elite, and he came up at a time when there like wasn't any room at the top for him to establish his name. It's like if he had a sick band at a time when they weren't handing out any new record deals. And he had one way to get around this, and the one way to get around this was like, well, fuck you guys, I'll make a deal with the fucking plebs, and they'll make me a star, right. And that was the only move he had to become more powerful, more rich, get more honors, and all these kinds of things. And the way they look at everything is how can this improve my situation? Can I make a deal with somebody and improve my situation? That's how everyone should look at it.
Yeah, because like you said, the rest of these fucks, they've got no tethering to people. And like Trump, I mean, he's obviously they'll say he's not a real outsider. He's still part of the the elite capital or whatever. But like he's not one of the as far as the top elite, he's not part of that money. He's not part of that that class, that tier. If you're going to segment it,
right? He came out of real estate development, which is a weird thing. That's
but you're missing the he is an outsider. He's not part of the elite, because unless you have like a left wing frame of what elite means, and then I guess hey, it's whatever.
He went to Harvard and all that kind of shit, though. I'm talking.
No, he is elite. I just mean he's not part of the machine. He's not part of that machine.
Yeah, he's the national elite, and not like these crazy, horrible globalists. Like,
I understand what MAAREK's saying. I'm defending us from the people in the comments right now, because I know they're gonna say this guy went to Harvard and all. Yeah.
Of course, I know that. Yeah, of course I know that. I'm just saying that like there's tiers, right? Like the Bezos money, the tech money, like there are tiers. And I'm not saying that he's a fucking, again, I'm not saying he's a fucking, pleb. He's like a fucking, Leninist motherfucker. Obviously, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that he's not part of the machine, and that changes his dynamic with the people. And again, it's like what you're describing. Like, what other avenue do you have than to, do a little patronage or get some, give something to the plebs and get some backing that way, which is what he did. That's what it was.
And in that way, he's an outsider. In that way, he's an outsider. Like, Trump the person, very clearly not, right? But Trump the politician, yes.
We got all these disclaimers out of the way.
Right. So we don't have all these people going, oh, fake populists.
Yeah, he spoke to the mob directly. That's how he won the primary.
Exactly.
That's how he took power. What he did with power afterwards, whatever. He didn't do a good job with it. Blah blah blah. Everybody knows those disclaimers too. But he spoke directly to the mob, and that was unacceptable for the main reason is because if the driving force behind the actual rulers ruling power of the United States is the permanent bureaucracy, and you don't need a permanent bureaucracy if you have leaders who speak directly to the mob and want their will carried out in the way that nominally it actually is supposed to work. Elected officials tell them what to do, they do that. Of course, it's not how it works. That was the conflict, and if we learn nothing else from Trump is that we found out how powerful elected officials are compared to bureaucrats. And the president what's the meme about the president? He's the most powerful person on the planet. Well, no, he's clearly not.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, Silicon Valley's fucking congratulating these fucks because who is their base? Like, who's their base? They have no base. Again, like Bog said, they don't need one, for one, and for two, obviously there's some weirdo fucking neolibs and neocon, like weird parasocial people that fucking love them or whatever. They're bizarre, right? But they're not common, right? They don't have a real fundamental base. So all their base is these fucking global elites that pat them on the back like, oh, good job, we did all the censorship and we got you in, like, good job. Like, that's them. That's the only people they care about. They don't have to listen to anybody else. And I think they were completely caught off guard by, as far as the normie glossing over of all this is just like, oh, Trump was an anomaly in 2016 and Brexit, it's all an anomaly. I think they weren't expecting that shit to happen as fast as it did, like with the Brexit referendum, whatever. I don't think they were expecting. I think they were legitimately caught off guard. Well, obviously they were, but I just mean that, like, I think this time around they were way more prepared in snuffing that shit out. I think they were way more ready to do that.
Yeah, they locked everyone inside.
Yeah, what happened as soon as the lib pandemic started up? What happened in Europe? All the populist parties started losing ground to the establishment parties. That lady in New Zealand got reelected with a huge majority. If you look up the news articles about her, because I don't know jack shit about New Zealand, it was like, well, she really got a lot of support for her great handling of the bat flu pandemic.
Yeah, she's the girl boss that crushed COVID.
No, and she took all the guns away,
back
right?
to footsie games.
Yeah,
she took the guns away. Yeah, that's right, Slav.
Yeah, she did the guns.
Yeah, I remember there was like this like whole, obviously like the populist right, quote unquote, was like making moves all over Europe, around the globe. Basically, it was like more so than the any populist left movement, obviously. And fucking Bannon's running around like fostering that shit. Yeah. I'm not fucking the like globalist nationalists or whatever. But like I'm not in favor of any of that, obviously. But I mean, I do know who's the worst evil, who's the greater evil, and honestly, that's better than whatever the fuck shit they were doing. What the status quo was.
I think it's a good indicator. Like, it's a good way of kind of gauging where the public is at.
Well, Bannon didn't start this. So Bannon, again, everything we said about before about Trump applies more so to Bannon, right? So Bannon came out of Goldman Sachs.
Super elite. Yeah.
Right. So privately, Bannon like is libtard, blah blah blah. Right. So, however, he's pretty clear about this. So he says like there's all this populist energy. I can set up. I can try to find ways to harness this. Right. That didn't come from him. He just happened to be a guy that was looking to profit from it.
Absolutely. Yeah, he said that himself. He was like, I saw all this rage, like this white male rage, and from like Gamergate or something. I think he like cited it directly or whatever.
Oh no, no, really?
He was just like, I saw some interview where he was like, I saw like how much rage there was because they like sabotaged some initiative if he had, and he was
well,
like,
he was one of Anita
Sarkeesian, and then he was like,
he was one of Anita Sarkeesian's backers for the Kickstarter, and he just felt burned. I think was what got it all started.
I'm 99% sure you're joking, but you know,
I'm 100%. Yeah, no.
I don't know.
you hear the so like that was one of the old she did a Kickstarter like way back at the beginning and raised all this money, and she was going to film like 30 like John Green style videos about teaching people all this stuff, and she just fucked off with the money.
Right. Exactly.
Like, you're not going to step to her because she'll fucking she's a scary person. She's like on the board of Google and shit. You know what I mean?
Right. She's got a throne room. She's a lot of fingers and a lot of pies.
Yeah, she knows your search history.
Yeah, I mean Bannon. Yeah, oh no, Bannon. I mean, he's like a complete. Yeah, I don't trust him for a second because he's from that slug world, obviously. But like, you know, and obviously he's been clear about how like cynical his whole thing is. But yeah, I mean, again, it's not even a thing about trusting Trump. Like, as the other thing leftists kept saying, like, you trust him. Like, it's just an incentive thing. I mean, I don't know how else to explain that. Like, it's just
you want a dirty guy like Bannon. Even Rahm Emanuel, when Obama was president, people complained about him, but you want somebody like that. You want a guy. You want a hitter,
an operator. Yeah.
I don't talk about it anymore because I used to talk about him a lot until that movie came out. But who's the Teamsters guy? Jimmy Hoffa, right? Yeah. So it's ridiculous. It's funny when the left talks like that because the time period when the left was like really kicking ass, getting all these workers protection and shit, it was all mobbed up like crazy, full of hitmen and gangsters and all this bullshit. Like it wasn't this touchy feely thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And Trump, by the way, as close as you're going to get to a mobbed up president, Trump was fucking mobbed up for a long time. This real estate development, the industry he came out of it's a weird industry, and it's very localized. It's mobbed up. Roy Cohn was his lawyer. He was John Gotti's lawyer. He considered. I mean, he used to say he was like a disciple of Roy Cohn. And Roy Cohn is as mafia is as good fellas as it gets.
Yeah, old New York shit. Yeah, Queens shit, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we talked about it with Marty too. It was just like, yeah, Trump was clearly just like taking the foot off the gas. That's all it was. And, for whatever short-term interim thing that was, like, that's better. And I mean, it's not much more complicated than that or more binary than that. But the thing we talked about with Marty too is like where the left goes after this, which, we didn't really have an answer because it just looks like fucking nowhere. It looks fucking nihilistic as shit. But I think
that doesn't involve me, so yeah.
They didn't ask you where should we go. No, but yeah, the other thing I think the other end of that I wanted to talk with you guys about is basically where you guys think the populist right goes after this, or what their takeaway is from the election. And I mean, from what I've seen basically right now is that a lot of them are in denial and they're still doing. Well, that's why Bog Beef's fucking trust the plan shit is the funniest fucking shit on Twitter to me. It's just like I there's no world where I imagined him, being able to overcome, the forces of global capital, basically Bezos and all these motherfuckers deciding that you're going to be out. Like, there's nothing he can do to overcome that. So that's already like locked in, and he's gone. Like, I don't care what any of these populist right people tell me. Like, it's over. He's gone. He's gone. He was gonna. It was preordained. He's going out. So a lot of them seem in denial now, but I just wonder like what you guys think is the next thing after, because a lot of people feel like the GOP is just going to go back to fucking safe neocon shit. Like, where do you think the roads lead after this?
Sounds like this guy doesn't trust the plan.
Yeah.
Okay,
I opted out. Yeah.
Right. So there's no Trumpism without Trump. Until there's, if there's no successor apparent, first off, right now, I think they should be plan trusting as much as possible. Stir up as much shit as possible. Claim this election's fake. Keep it going.
Absolutely.
Not because this is because what else are you gonna do?
Yeah.
There is some amount of this guy's still in the White House. He can still do a lot of bullshit.
His party could keep him in office legally, completely legally, if they wanted to. That's what all that matters is they could if they have an inkling of the not believing the results of the election like their voters do, they could do something about it. And that's what everybody, everybody should be I guess, like I said when we were talking to Tink Zorg, like everybody, if you don't like the status quo, you should really be thinking about this. Here's a chance for good or bad to break out of the back and forth. Like right now, there's another election coming up in a little over a month. That if the populist right, or whatever you want to call it, fucking stays at home because they cucked out and stabbed the president in the back on December 15th or whenever the electors right, then you fucking stay home and you give the Senate to Joe Biden and you send a very strong message that no, that you're not going. We're not going back to vote for Marco Rubio. We're not going back to vote for Jeb Bush. Whatever.
Right. Now, there's this goes a couple different ways, right? So number one, so the first thing is like, well, is Trump the guy? Well, he is now until you have another guy.
Yeah.
Right, and so Trump is going to capitalize on this. He's probably going to form a media company. Blah blah blah. Yes, the number one job that of plan trusters right now should be voting out all the guys in Georgia. That's one of the there's I can't remember the name of the book. Distributist recommended it once, and there's a great book. It talks about like what it's like to be a politician, incentives that they respond to. The way the book posits is like the book starts out and it says like, if you want to do something, you want to like you have like you want certain things in politics, right? So you're a Bernie bro or something like this. And it says, well, what can you do? And the book says like, okay, here's what you should do. First off, don't vote and try these things instead. And basically the book gave you techniques to gaslight a politician that they would be voted out of office if they did this or that, right? So and the book had lots of examples about how like one of the only incentives that politicians like respond to that aren't like real direct cash incentives are like, fuck, I could get voted out of office if I do this. I'm really scared about that.
Yeah.
And they have a big opportunity if they get these safe Republican candidates that want to do GOP shit for the next 4 years. If they get their jock rocked in Georgia, there's going to be a lot more plan trusting around the GOP.
Yeah, who was baby girl out in Colorado? He was a representative. He'd been there forever. He wasn't even like a liberal Republican. He was pretty mainline Republican, and she primaried him and took his spot, and now she's trying to tote a gun in Congress and church, and it can be done. You can do that.
Right. There's and one of the things like, so let's say like all this happens and everything's good and gravy for the Trump camp. Like this will be like 60% good at most, right? Most of these people will end up being shitty and blah blah blah. But this is politics, right? So there's no magic answers for anybody, and it's bad times for Trump people.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like this thing was going on before Trump, and that's why I know Bab says that no Trumpism without Trump, but I feel like Trump is just riding the wave, right? And I don't believe in like great men theory shit. Like, I mean, there'll be something else after him, like the Tea Party, to whatever degree that was like a co-opted thing or whatever. Whatever energy there was after the 2008 crash like was real, and that wave is carried on to Trump and Q and whatever's coming after this. So I think there will be something else. I don't think it dies here for good. I don't think that at all.
I think one of my takeaways from all of these fucking protests we've seen over the last few months, with what looks to me just kind of like a way of just kind of like letting out a little pressure in some ways, makes me a little less optimistic about that kind of it's bubbling under the surface, and it'll come out at some point. Like I think that is enough of a kind of I forget the word I want to use here, but it just these fucking protest psyops. I think that is a viable alternative, just to what you were saying.
You mean like BLM?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure the GOP will have their, fucking versions of it and all that. But the catharsis, that's the word I wanted. Like, I think that catharsis might honestly be enough to diffuse.
I was just saying, like, I don't know that his base is inherently tied to Trump itself. Like, I'm not sure that Trumpism it really exists as a coherent ideology at all. No. I think it's a lot of different sects of people. I think there's a big populist movement behind it. I think there's also people who do cling to Trump, like a cult of personality. But I don't think that, like, Trump going away means that a populist movement on the right goes away at all. I just think it means that, like, the people who were clinging to Trump as a populist or like as like a personality, cult of personality thing might not be as strongly supportive, but they probably still will because it's still an outsider type candidate if a populist does come along.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I mean, SLAV, I guess, is saying that like they'll basically find some way to funnel the energy out into some bullshit, into some like some like BLM equivalent. Yeah, some like BLM equivalent for the right, basically, to like the Tea Party, I guess, like something like that, some avenue to just like funnel that shit away and just like diffuse it.
I guess what I was thinking of was was basically this with Biden coming back. Like, to me, I'm thinking of like it's populism versus the swamp, right? With BLM, not BLM. With Biden coming back, there's a lot of people who like didn't even sell their house yet in DC, and they're all back in business, baby. And all these people that Trump fired and stuff. Wow, that's a big setback. Any new populist person would be starting at zero,
right?
And all these guys in DC, they're like anytime that DC elites, finance, all these people, like, they fuck up all the time. What they often do though, after they fuck up, they go and change the rules, right? So like, you remember Ross Perot, right? So after Ross Perot ran and he scared them in like a Trump style campaign thing, they went and changed all the fucking rules, make sure there won't be no more Ross Perots.
Right.
I think we may see something like that.
So basically barricading and just making it even harder for something like that to happen again.
Well, the important thing to remember about Trump in 2016 is part of his strategy was he got free airtime from the media by just saying stuff that they would point the camera at him and act outraged. They did the opposite of that in 2020. They put a lid on him, and it worked. And so, how is the next guy in the Republican primary? How is he going to replicate what Trump did? Is a good question. Maybe the takeaway from Trump for any quote unquote right wing populist should be that you can't really do it that way because it didn't work. It didn't work for him anyhow. As Bogby said, like, look, we did have concrete, like, there were some concrete things that Trump did accomplish. And they were more negations, but okay, immigration, he's really slowed down immigration. That he legitimately did that. There were actually some gains for wages in the lower quintiles or whatever. It's not nothing, but it's all going to get rolled back come 2020, come 2021.
Right. Okay, so in terms of who would be the next Trumpist guy, so one of the things I hear a lot, and so neither of these parties really do jack shit for me. Like, the only real thing that's actually a political football that really matters to me, it's just sort of a side thing, is I like to recreationally shoot guns. The 2A stuff happens a lot, but to be honest, most of that stuff happens like as lawfare. It's not really things you vote. Like anytime like politicians do shit with guns, like, guns lose, right? So it doesn't really do anything for me. So, but one of the things that comes up a lot and all this kind of stuff is whenever these populist stuff comes up. So like Huey Long is a model, right? Love Huey Long. And people are like, well, I could do all this, but you can't. All this sounds great, but you can't do it through the Republican Party. You got to do it through the Democratic Party. I understand that. There's a lot of reasons why you'd feel that way, especially so like if you're in New York and California California, like there's nothing the Republican Party can ever do for you, really. And I understand that. So that's why, in other places too. So like you'll see people on. I won't get tangent there. So it's Blagojevich, baby. Blagojevich is the next person, and he just got out of jail.
Yeah,
he's got a great
free our boy,
man.
He's been working out. He has a personal debt to Trump. And
he does.
Yeah, he freed him, right?
Yeah. And Blagojevich is a Democrat.
Right.
He's an outsider. He sort of got pushed out under weird pretenses. And so if Blagojevich ran as a Trump Democrat, that'd be the next move for the populist right.
And do what? Get 5% of the fucking vote in the primary, and then get sent home by the good voters of the Democratic primary.
Yeah,
there's not if there's a buffet. Who else? Who else you got?
You're not going to do it in the Democratic Party. It's the ruling party. Both literally now and by the people who constitute.
Yeah.
He could run. He could switch at the last second. He could run as an independent. He could. There's something. He could run as independent or something like that. There's a lot of people who just they can't do anything.
Democratic Party.
I agree 100. I think that's got to be the takeaway from all this, right? Is that both of them, there's no avenue in, right? There's no avenue. I mean, the GOP and all these fuckers just like cut him out at the last second, like clearly left him for dead, Trump. And the DNC, I mean, that's even less of an avenue.
Yeah, if there's any.
The problem with the DNC is they have the what's the mandate? They have the mandated heaven, right?
There we go.
Right. So corporations are with them, and so
exactly.
This is one of the reasons why all these like leftists like Jackman stuff are so snaky. It's because of course you would be. Why would you ever turn your back on the DNC now? Because now corporations love them, and so anything they want. It's as long as you don't say anything about this or this, then the world's your oyster, and it's very hard to get people to turn away from that.
Yeah, I think they're the corporate party now. I feel like that shifted in the 90s where it just became like, the Clinton brand was just like, oh yeah, this will be like the nicer version of Reagan or whatever, and still do the welfare cuts and still do all the crime bills, all that shit. And I feel like they just they just knew that they could go long on the Democrats more than the Republicans. Because like we were talking about this before, Bog, was like the neocons, like as of 2016, 2015, like they were fucked, like they were dead. As far as like any mandate. Yeah. I mean, they were dead because like the corporations moved to the Dems and fucking Trump was the only thing pumping life in. That's probably the only reason why he had a window. And now like, they're, I don't know, they cut him out, whatever. But like, I don't think the Democrat avenue is even there in any form. I think that's even harder. That's even harder to pull off. I don't believe the GOP angle. I don't believe that you could get through with the GOP, especially after now. Yeah, but the Democrats, I think, is even less likely.
I think the takeaway is that there's no avenue through either GOP or the DNC, and that whatever avenues do exist are just dead ends in the first place.
Well, yeah. Well, okay. Well, yeah. But then, then we should log off and grill, right?
Then you try to push for like a more. I mean, obviously, it's a shot in the dark right now, and probably for the next like half century. But you try to push for something that actually represents your interests, and it's not just some guy who happens to be like a ghoulie neocon who's like, you know what, I want to be king. I'm gonna represent your interests. Someone who actually represents your interests in the first place, which obviously is like not how our political system's set up, right? So it's not going to happen, and like they won't get voted in, and that would never happen. But you have to like start telling people that we need to try to figure out some sort of avenue to make something like that happen, or if it doesn't happen, figure out a way to try to cut ties with the two parties in total and see just like what happens. Like if they have no public support at all for the two parties, do they continue to run it and act like they do? I mean, I'm sure they probably do.
Let me offer a counter argument. I'm an idiot. I don't want someone who was on my side from the very beginning. He's going to be an idiot too. I do want some fucking ghoul fool who says, you know what, if I give some table scraps to this idiot, I can make myself more powerful. It's the only way we're going to get. You're never going to get anybody who genuinely cares about our welfare, because you don't accrue power that way. If that was what you were about, you wouldn't be getting into the politics game in the first place.
Damn, that's a real black pill.
Sure, yeah, but like if that's a black pill, then like we're completely fucked. So like I think the idea would be trying to check if that's what the public perception is. Every underclass person understands that. Then why don't we try to do something outside of that, or why don't we try to make a politics that's different and watch how it gets fucking shot down the drain constantly, so that we can say like, hey, maybe there's some type of recourse that we need to do here. I don't know what that is. I mean, obviously there's nothing, but like, I don't know. I think we need to break out of the mold before anything could happen. And I think what it would lead to is even worse, like just technocracy, like neo-monarchy hellscapes, like, right, where Amazon just runs the West Coast. But like, I think even that in itself would be something that changes things to a point where like shit will get so much worse under that, things would have to change down the line again. Like, I'm not sure that, I mean, like we could just keep ourselves stuck here forever and just try to like fight the better of two evils constantly. But then again, like we're just doing normal fucking American politics at that point.
Right. Well, yeah, I believe in like a third. Sorry, SLAV, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I want to know where, MAAREK, you were talking about the upcoming election and like moves for the populist right. And I almost kind of want to know where that fits in with this conversation. Because we went, then we went to like the Republican Party isn't viable. The Democratic Party isn't viable. Now we're kind of just blackpilling on electoral democracy. And I wonder where that point you brought up fits into this.
I mean, I wasn't blackpilling. To me, this is a white bill. Okay, Bog Beef mentioned Caesar before. Before Caesar, there were the Grack guy, and they got fucking murdered by the Senate. There's Marius who kind of did what Caesar, parts of what Caesar wanted to do, but he wasn't successful. So I mean, this doesn't. You don't.
I was told you were dumb, sir. You said you were dumb.
Trust me, I'm very stupid. So I don't agree that there's nothing you can do with the Republican Party. And there's two reasons. One, if you live in like West Virginia, there's a lot you can do with the Republican. They can do a lot for you. You can if they control your state government, that right there, your state government really has more control over your life than the federal government to begin with. We learned that very well here in the Commonwealth of Virginia after the 2018 election, because they just immediately started fucking everything up here when the Democrats took control. Second, because the Republican Party is not the party with the mandate of heaven, as my colleague said, you can make moves. You're not going to run into like. So if we're taking the charitable view of Bernard Sanders, he was fucked over in 2016 and in 2020 by the. I don't want to say bureaucracy, but like the machine of his party.
Yeah.
Trump bent the machine of his party over the table, and he was able to do that because like they're not like the Republican Party of 2016 and 2022, 2024. They don't have a base. They don't have a solid base. They can't count on corporate money anymore. They can't count on Wall Street money. They don't have the support of the elite in society. Quite the opposite. So yeah, you can, like if you're a Republican senator and Trump after this election's over with finally says, you know what, these guys fucked me over. I want all my voters stop voting for the Republican Party. Yeah, he could do legitimate damage. He could send some of those guys packet. He could send the two of them packet in Georgia right now. So that like there are things that people can do. Now, Trump's not going to do it because Trump is a guy who he likes the trappings of power. He's a celebrity. He likes being liked.
Right.
You can. Right. I think the Republican Party, I would definitely say, is like a lot more malleable right now. Exactly. To what you were saying there a second ago, like I know a lot of people compared the Democratic primary to the Republican primary of 2016, like our latest primary in the Democratic Party, and how there were so many people up on stage and all of that. Right. But I really don't think they were in a similar place, because I mean, like in the Trump age, right? I mean, they got money coming in hand over fucking fist, right? Yeah. And if you remember, they had like two stages. They had like a minor league for debates in 2016 in the Republican lane. I mean, like to speak to like table, to speak to just like where some of these like seats of power are and like the varying degrees of viability of the parties depending on what state you're in. I thought it was so so funny. This latest gubernatorial election up here in Washington, the guy running on the Republican ticket, Lauren Culp, I guess he ran the majority of his campaign as basically just all about and maybe this is a lot more common than I'm aware of because I'm not on Facebook, but I guess it was just all about getting boomers to just game the Facebook algorithm and just repost shit and hashtag shit, and that's all it was, right? right. And that speaks to basically everything you need to know about what the machine looks like in Washington State. But I guess also what the playbook is going forward for people trying to run in that lane. I thought that was funny. I thought it was very telling.
But parting shot. This is for you, Bog Beef, and I'll stop talking. Here's the biggest reason not to black people about the Republican Party. Who's the Jim Clyburn of the Republican Party?
Right.
McConnell?
There is none. It's an open spot. That's what I was wanting to go for. Okay, so one of the things that this discussion happens a lot. People say, well, the Republican Party is part of the working class, and then people pipe out and they say, well, that's ridiculous. All these people are fucking ghouls. It's all these yeah, that's absolutely right. So here's the Republican Party is not the party of working class, and I don't even like saying that, right? But however, like what's meant there is not that like, oh, we're going to defend workers' rights. What it means is that this is a garbage bin of who's left over outside of the progressive coalition.
Kulak Party.
Right. It's whoever's left over, and the working class. There's it's too complicated to get to right now, but they're not a good if you had your druthers, if you wanted to be a powerful politician, they're not a good power base, right? Anyways, so and the Republican Party is a garbage bin full of people that they're just randomly left over, right? That's what it's weirdos. Everyone sees these Trump things, and it's a random garbage bin, yeah. And so one of the things about is it more malleable? Hell yeah. You look at the Republican politicians. Most Republican politicians, their kids, are they're worried about if they can get a job and go to the right school and stuff because their parents are visibly a Republican. This is it's a social disaster. This whole thing is serious companies going to give them money and stuff because it has all these associations. Going back to how do you do this stuff? How could you establish any power? Maybe the whole thing is fucked. Blah blah. Well, I still think that exists. That goes back to what Mary said. Well, who's the Jim Clyburn Republican Party or whatever? So if you were okay, so would it be possible to engineer a real movement, really do stuff? Yeah. And does that happen outside of a conversation about Trump? Yeah, I think it does. I think Huey Long's existence. If you took Huey Long's game plan and you could map it to 2020, you would do something like that. That's kind of outside the scope of this conversation. But I just want to say, hyper focusing on Trump doesn't mean that I don't think you couldn't build real power and do it right way.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah. Well, I just wanted to go back to what MAAREK said for a second of I prefer Trump to Bernie when you compare the two now. I mean, I never thought I would say that a year ago, but I prefer him because he actually made the GOP yield to him to a degree. Obviously, they booted him out and they rejected him out of their system, whatever. But he still got that done for 2016 and for whatever amount of years, however much he did marginally, as opposed to Bernie, which was completely subsumed into the DMC. He was out there campaigning harder for Biden than Biden was.
Well, right. He just doesn't have the killer instinct.
Well, yeah. And that's where I prefer him because I see the GOP and the DNC as the same, and whoever can, fuck them over or provide any resistance to them more effectively is whoever I prefer. I don't really give a fuck as far as the social, values that are different between the two of them. That's less important to me as far as who can fucking fucking stop their fucking consolidation of wealth and the imperialism and all this shit, whatever. So it's like, you know, that's why I prefer Trump. But I don't believe in like great man theory shit. Like I don't believe that like Trump. I don't think it's dependent on him. Again, I really don't think he's special. I mean, he is an anomaly to a degree, but I feel like there will be someone else. You know what I mean? Besides, you know, and there'll be a Bernie successor too, to a degree. I mean, it might just be AOC, and that fucking
that's
sucks,
what I'm worried about, right?
She's got more balls than Bernard ever did.
You think so?
Yeah, she's a fiery Latina.
Yeah, well, I mean, she's shitty.
The machine, or
no, of course not. But that's Bernard's problem. If he's against the machine, so what? He's a pussy. He wouldn't even fight for himself. Does he's useless? Do you mean, when you say great man theory? Do you mean you don't think that Trump is you know a great figure, which I'd agree with, or you don't believe in great man theory? Period.
I just don't think. I don't think that he's. I don't think he's like. I don't think that he's. I think
history bends to the will of single individuals.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I think.
What'd you say?
He said he disagreed. So I think we have a combined view of this. I can synthesize this, right? So okay. We looked at Caesar. So let's take another guy real quick. So one of the people who changed history, considered changed history the most, is Martin Luther, right? He translated the Bible into the Vulgate language. Okay, so the thing, and yes, he really did do that. Yes, that involved all these showdowns, but the main thing, like going head to head versus power, making these weird alliances, all these people trying to stop him, blah blah blah. But the thing about him, and this applies to Caesar, applies to all these great men in history, is that like 10 guys tried to do what Martin Luther did before him, but they didn't get their head chopped off, right? And so the same thing with Caesar, right? So all the things that Caesar was capitalizing on were there's two theories, right? So there's the trends and forces, there's the great man of history. The thing is,
it's both. So, yeah, you're right. I mean,
it's both.
The German princes.
No, it's both. Obviously, no, I totally agree. It's both.
Yeah. German princes kept Martin Luther alive. You know,
this is the big IQ club here.
The right end of the bell curve.
So it's both.
Yeah, obviously, no, yeah. I think, I just want to clarify that. I'm not saying that conditions get the ground gets softened, right? Conditions allow themselves for these people to more frequently pop up, right? And of course, you need the right person for the right time, obviously, which is not that's random.
Yeah, we ain't got it.
I mean, Caesar, by the way, was like the 7th or 8th guy to try to step in and use this crisis. He kept going on and on and on. Martin Luther was like the 3rd that translated the Bible, and he happened to keep his head. But like these knots, like there are what would be the one in our situation? Basically, there's inconsistencies. There's I don't know what you would say. There's sort of problems with globalism that sort of need to be reined in, and someone's eventually going to step in and be like, okay, we're going to do something.
Yeah, I think that's what I mean. I mean, there might be
another very dialectical approach there.
No, I feel like somebody else is going to step into that. Like there will be another great man, quote unquote, that will, like Trump. I mean, before 2015, I mean, him being president was, it's weird to keep, to remind this because it seems like an obvious point, but it's like, it was insane. It was completely out of nowhere. So it's like, the conditions, like he's a unique case, and maybe no one else could have pulled off what he did, but the conditions are ripe for it. And the conditions are only going to get more ripe under these fucking slugs, under Kamala and fucking Biden. So, as that keeps going, and, all this lib pandemic, austerity bullshit, like it's only going to accelerate, and the conditions will be more ripe, and there will be somebody. I mean, maybe they're already out there, right? I mean, I don't know the time frame, the timetable this will take, but maybe they're already out there, or maybe, and they're not as viable as they seem now. Yeah, it's Slav. Yeah, it's going to be Slav or Drew.
It's going to be me, baby.
Baron Trump, 8 feet tall.
Yeah. I'm Baron turns anon.
And what's Biden and Kamala are going to do about like foreclosures and all these businesses that had to shutter? Like, there's going to be a big fucking recession, and there's going to be people.
Yep.
What are they going to do about this? That's the big question. I mean, like, if they fuck that up, like the same way they fucked up 2008, then we're going to be right back to where we started from in 2000.
Oh yeah,
I got one phrase.
Even worse.
I got one phrase for you, baby. Earned income tax credits for black trans women. For black trans women, we're gonna take demographics that are 1/10 of 1% of the population, and we're gonna give them the lap of luxury. And you just psyop the fuck out of that. I don't know. I mean, it's at least the best they got. I mean,
you took up their people's oppression and use it for that's one of the great magic tricks of the modern lib is that like if bad shit happens to you, you're there's slavery, Holocaust over it. Some fuckwad that went to Yale can just sort of soak that up and use it to their own political might.
Yeah.
If we solved homelessness, would that cure racism? I don't think so.
Yeah, priorities.
Dude, beautifully said.
I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, I never thought exactly.
No, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is a big conversation. Like, we're pretty close to the window of time where this event just happened as far as the election, or whatever. And like, who knows? We can't really speculate. But like, I think you guys are being very pragmatic. I think that makes sense. That like, even though you're disagreeing about the DNC or the GOP as avenue, I feel like I get why you're saying this. You're just being very pragmatic about it. But I do believe that sort of in line with what COH is saying, I think the only avenue at this point is some third way. I mean, I don't know, as far as what type of third party there would be, or like how viable that is, or whatever. But I don't think. I agree with COH. I don't think we can keep doing this bullshit. I don't think we can keep doing this like pendulum swinging back and forth, and it just careening into fucking more and more nightmarish bullshit.
Oh, we can keep doing it. We can. We are keep doing it.
We're gonna do it. Yeah, we're gonna keep doing it. I'm just saying, like, I don't think it's too naive or delusional to talk about it, because I feel like, why the fuck not? I mean, if you're being realistic about it, why the fuck not? Because every other route is fucking bleak. So I mean, why not? Oh, at this point, why not?
And I grew up underclass. My whole life, I'm like hearing other underclass people who either don't vote or only vote for president and are like not very politically involved, always talking about like, oh yeah, like these people aren't going to do shit for me. This isn't going to change anything. And then they talk about, yeah, it'd be cool if there was a third party or an outsider, but like, that's just bullshit. Or if you bring up, oh, like what if there's a third party, like, or what if we figure out some sort of way that's like an outsider that can challenge the DNC and the Republican Party? People are like, oh yeah, that just won't happen. So like, to me, there's two things that are happening there. One is that there's just like implicit support for that, and then there's just a like immediate black pill, like, oh, this won't happen in the first place. Well, if I'm hearing that there's support from it from fucking everyone I meet, but everyone also just doesn't believe it can happen, why don't we just try to address the fact that like people don't believe it can happen and try to make it so that it could happen?
Exactly. I totally agree.
There's so this is kind of a wishy-washy point. So one of the things about the third party thing, and I don't know enough to totally. So it's been done in the past, right? But however, so one of the things about third party stuff, as soon as you start doing multiple, like, so Europe, they all do like, they have 10 parties, right? And all these, they have a zillion parties. One of the things that you end up happening when you do more than two is that it's sort of like centrists dominate, because everyone just teams up against anyone stepping out of the centrist, out of the centrist frame, like forever. I'm not saying that that's not resolvable. That's not really beyond my scope of saying that. Maybe there'll be some discussion on that. And one of the other things that comes up, so one of the reasons why I like talking to these dissident right people, right? So especially like you saw like Tradcasts and stuff, like, so one of these people's like thing is like a lot of the smart ones, like they know, like they have no hope of ever doing anything in politics ever, right? There's never going to be no Tradcast president, no Tradcast party, anything they want must be done outside of politics. And like as soon as you, and I'm not saying that's true for everybody, but interesting thoughts happen once you start thinking that way. And I like to hear what they say about these things like that. But that's one interesting move to be like, well, you know what? Like, so, you know, like one of their things, one of these dissident right things, it's very unseen, like even top to bottom, like you're not supposed to vote, right? Because if you vote, you're sort of like giving it, like you're sort of like thinking that you could influence the world with a vote or whatever, and like they're supposed to be like above that, because as soon as they start thinking like that, like they might as well just kill themselves, because they're never going to get anything done in politics. It's something I'm rolling out there.
But yeah, this is what we call the distant right. What we're really saying are like internet people on the right who are like, you know, they're alienated millennial Zoomers people. I mean, I'm not throwing stones here. I spend a lot of time looking at Twitter myself, but it's like,
yeah, we can't throw stones.
Distributed does a great job. He's got a family. He's got a big life for himself, but he knows that like he's no political party is ever going to reflect his interests.
Well, and what is it? It's like parallelism. Isn't that how he puts it? It's like, dude, just fucking disconnect, build an immediate physical community around you of like-minded people, and just ride it out, I guess. Which, I mean, I guess to be fair, isn't really all that bad of an idea.
Well, strangely, that also goes hand in hand kind of with like the people on the left who kind of have the same ideal with like the kind of grill pill and log off, etc. But also like what that does is functionally it provides room for these like NGOs to come in, right? And then they can fill the gap and they can build these strong communities. So I don't think like that is the solution either. I think that you're totally right about when you bring in a third party, there's going to be a consolidation around the center, which is like, I think honestly something that we saw even within our own two-party political system this past election. But I think that there's utility to that as well. Like if we were somehow able to spur up some sort of like, I don't know if it's going to be, obviously wouldn't be purely working class, but something that resembles a more working class led movement with auxiliary support from like, people on the welfare state, or people who are like maybe even those like downward facing PMCs. But if you could maybe figure something out like that, where you have a decent support among the population, when they do that consolidation, which they 100% will, and they will fuck you and they'll continue to fuck you, you can point to that as a way, just like Trump did, of being the outsider and saying, hey, this whole system is fucked up in the first place. And you can use that to black pill on like the two party, but also the electoral system as it's built generally already. And I don't think that the answer is like quote unquote outside politics. I think it's just reimagining a politics that works for working class people, which is a hard thing to do, obviously. I mean, there's no like semblance of that in our modern day, because it's just like, that's, if there was a politics that worked for working class people, then it would either be snuffed out or it would be too powerful of like a force, because that's what working class people fucking want.
Why is there an assumption that you could have working like a solidarity amongst the working class? I've heard this a lot from people on the left over the years, and I don't see it.
I think there's shared material interest.
Yeah. What do you think would be the main wedge, or what do you think would be the biggest divider? I mean, just social cultural war shit. Like, is that the?
Well, I mean,
what do you think?
Okay, let's go back to shared material interests. All right, what is that? Does a farmer in Nebraska have the same material interests as a hotel clerk in Manhattan? They don't want the same things. I mean, there are
maybe not exactly the same things, but I think that they're more aligned than someone who would be like a Republican who like says that I'm going to do like subsidies or whatever from these farmers in Nebraska. I think that there's a larger base of common interest shared than there. So there's an easier way to, like, I don't know that everyone in the working class has the exact same shared interest, and obviously not the same ideology. And I think the ideology has a big play in that. Like, I think obviously we're also consumer brained. Everyone has, what are they going to consume as like a big interest for them and a big driving force for them. And so like, you also have differing sectors of the working class. You have the service economy and the productive like manufacturing jobs, which don't have the same material interests like right immediately. But I think that they have the same material interests as far as like universal programs and redistribution of wealth and that type of thing goes. And then you can suss out from there going forward. Like obviously, like maybe not, like it wouldn't be immediately the same interest for a hotel clerk in New York to maybe close the borders so that there's less competition for fruit being grown in a California valley coming in from the fucking South America or whatever. But I think that you could point to them and say, hey, well, it would strengthen our economy, which would then like be able to boost. I mean, I don't know.
So they wouldn't have any bellhops.
Yeah, well, no, I don't really know exactly how the argument works, but like I know that they have more shared interests than the fucking GOP dude who's just going to be like, yeah, I'll give you a subsidy for your farm.
Right.
Well, you cited the perfect example there. Let's say like immigration. Okay, these two people who were in the same. They're both working class people in the same income bracket. They're going to have very different views on immigration.
Sure.
If
should they?
Yeah, I don't think they should. I think they just do.
Should.
They're competing for this. Okay, so let's say they both need like some state funds from like welfare, or they need some food stamps. Well, you know, if there's more people here, like then there's less to go around. The same thing with the labor thing, like the rednecks who like they wish they had the roofing job. Well, if there's an open door, then their labor value goes down. The only two things I think you could see shared would be like, well, less people here, less immigration, and then the other one no one wants to hear it, but it'd be payroll taxes.
Yeah, I mean, I was a hotel clerk for a number of years because I worked in like a town that was driven by tourism, and I actually came like firsthand contact with an issue where it would actually be in the hotel clerk's interest to close the borders because we had so many people who were J1 workers who were there. Essentially, it's like an H-1B visa, but it's a J1 visa, where these are student workers who would come in from other countries and work. They give them housing, and then they would work. They promise them X amount of hours at a job for X amount of weeks. And at this particular corporation that we worked at, they would get grants and stuff from the government to do these things. And so it was cheaper to hire workers like this and do that. But that also meant that people who lived in the surrounding area, the jobs were harder to find. And the possibility of finding a full-time job, because these people came in seasonally, was harder because these jobs were already promised away. So in that exact scenario, their interests would be aligned on closing the borders.
Absolutely. The other, and number two, and I don't even want to even on our show, I don't even like to go on by immigration because if people get upset, they feel like they want to deport their grandmother or whatever, if you're just sort of noting some material interest or whatever. So, but the other one, by the way, and this one, maybe this people get excited, is payroll taxes. So one of the, maybe this will be, maybe people can discuss this. So I don't like any uncapped taxes, any cap taxes. Sorry. So like, if anyone ever here has like worked at McDonald's, worked for a real shitty job, I have. So like, you know, like someone works at McDonald's all week, like they mail off like $300 of that $500, $200, that $500 check off to the state. And like if you work at McDonald's, you make $500 a week. I don't need $200 of that $500. You go ahead and keep that. That's going to cause a lot of problems. There's a lot of taxes. There's a lot of programs that won't get paid. I would love for we find other ways to get that's sort of uncapped. That's sort of like, so the problem with that is like, you know, people like Jeff Bezos, they don't pay payroll taxes that way. If you're Kobe Bryant and you make $70 million, well, there's a cap. It only goes up so far. They don't pay the same amount. They don't pay the same percentage as that person working at McDonald's. That's something that I think like all people of lower income could converge on.
Yeah, but
go get the money somewhere else is what you have to say, basically.
Absolutely.
And now what people are going to say is, well, oh, you want to cut Social Security and Medicare. Well, there you go. So, you know, it's I don't.
But getting the money elsewhere would be to tax the rich more, right? Which I guess that opens up its own questions of like, right, not payroll tax, obviously, but you'd have to go out at some other avenue, which I guess they get very I mean, they pay fucking enormous amounts of money to evade this shit and to get lawyers to help them evade this shit, and they got the tax havens and all that. So it gets complicated. But I mean, yeah, I agree completely that like, yeah, this shouldn't be on the backs of us, you know what I mean, or of regular people. It should be on, you know, disproportionately from them.
And that's a shared interest right there. Like a farmer in Nebraska and me working in a hotel in like Colorado would both like to see a larger share of taxes on Jeff Bezos and a lesser share of taxes on me.
Absolutely.
And Monsanto and these like huge corporate fucking like farming companies that are like taking all of their profit and like ruining these small farmers, or even meat medium-sized farmers, whatever, private farmers, they would like to see these large corporations get broken up just as much as someone who's working somewhere else would like to see corporations get broken up too, because the corporations just generally have a negative effect on people's lives. And I think like that in itself is a material interest there. And like, I think there's plenty of them, and I think there's plenty of them to go around. And yeah, if you get down straight to the nitty gritty, like of just like right now, immediate material interest, I don't think that like they're the exact same, right? Like just based on location, your shit would be different. But I think that there's a larger portion to draw from.
Yeah, I think everybody's got to pay rent. Everybody's got to put their kid in school. Everybody needs healthcare. You know what I mean? And as far as things that align, I mean, look, I mean, if the point is that like they're not going to be 100% aligned on everything, obviously, sure, of course, I totally agree. But I mean, if there are things that are substantial, like, you know, what Bog's saying about the payroll tax, and I mean, anti-regime change was something that was mirrored on both debates as far as the GOP and the DNC debate. There was both that sentiment pushing back against the establishment, if it's Ron Paul or Trump or fucking Bernie or Gravel or whatever the fuck, like there was that sentiment, and there's anti-trade sentiment, there's anti-free trade and outsourcing of jobs sentiment. Like there is overlap, and I mean that's something that I focus more on than what there's differences of. But so do you feel as though that those differences are more powerful? Basically, they're the thing that basically will prevent this from happening, from any type of coalescing of these interests.
I think the problem, and what I was trying to get at the beginning, is that with a lot of kind of going after the left concept of solidarity, is that it's a kind of a bottom up phenomenon where you have these people who have shared interests who come together and demand whatever. I don't think there's any proof that you can organize people, that you can get a movement of you can get people to band together and care enough for that. Like, there are things you can get people to band together and fight and die for. Obviously, we've seen that all of human history. I don't see any evidence that this ever has been one of those things that you can do, and I'm not sure that I buy that it's possible. Now you can have, as we said before, you can have political parties, political movements that direct its patronage in that direction. And that's payroll taxes is a great example because for better or worse, payroll taxes are pretty universal. And what's the alternative in the United States to like Social Security, Medicare, these things that we pay into? There's things that come out of the general fund, right? Like what we broadly call welfare.
Right.
Welfare is an incredibly big, and let me not get fired. It's a really good way to create patronage networks, and it's really easy when you have these discretionary fund programs to direct money towards people that you want to direct it to and direct it away from people you don't.
Oh, you're talking about welfare queens. Patronage in that form.
Well, by the way, like I think it's so good that I mean, to me, if I was going to build like a revolutionary movement, I would start off by copying it. I would send people money. I would be a Clyburn. I would send people money and get them on the team and build like a long-term movement like that. You could certainly do it with this other thing we're talking about. Like you would I think Washington knows that payroll taxes and immigration. There's a reason. I mean, by the way, I mean let's go back. Like, how did Trump get elected? He got elected because he said he would do something about immigration. Now payroll taxes. I don't want to speak about that anymore. Payroll taxes. It could be interesting. It's. I think as soon as someone said it and they'd have a good case to make, they would say like, well, let's get lost in the weeds of how it would go down. But certainly there are interests like that. You
totally.
Could do.
Yeah, I like what I want to get back real quick to what MAAREK was saying, just about not seeing proof of material like shared interests being a thing. And I think what you're kind of getting at more so is like this idea of solidarity based on a vision for a better future, or like based on empathy for your neighbor or whatever. Is not communists
and socialists too much. They have a very specific version. It's kind of like if you ask like am I materialist? Like, are you a normal person or are you like a philosophy communist person? If you're like a philosophy socialist person, then no, I'm not a materialist. Because that means
I feel the same way.
Right, because that means something that means you're like this weird robot person.
You believe in the prophecy. You believe in the prophecy.
I think their concept
with solidarity.
Their concept of solidarity, which is I guess the working model that people think of, is like this mystified version of solidarity where it's like, oh, I'll fight for my neighbor. Oh, I'll fight for the person next to me. Bernie Sanders 2020 rally bullshit.
Yeah,
but no. What I'm talking about is solidarity based on shared material personal interests. So you'll fight because you want your shit to get better. And it turns out your neighbor wants their shit to get better too. And y'all shit could get better at the same time. And I think there's 100% proof of that happening, because I think people, if driven by nothing else, people are driven by their own personal interest. And when you put people up against a wall, they're going to make a fight or flight decision, or they're going to fight or whatever. Maybe not. Most people will fight though. And most people want to survive and do better. And I think that there is proof of it working. Like if you look at fucking like early America, even you can look at Shays Rebellion and like Shays Uprising. Daniel Shay, which is like a farmer, just got a bunch of other farmers in Western Mass to get all together because they were pissed about the amount of taxes that they were having to pay under the new federation. And so instead they all got together and they were like, hey, I don't want to have to pay more taxes as a small farmer. I don't want to have to pay more taxes as a small farmer either. And they went out there and most of them died because of that belief, but it ended up ushering in a different change in tax code and kind of like spurring on a little bit of some sort of change. So like these people, like they went out and fought based on their shared material interests, not based on the idea of them having shared material interests, but the fact that all of them had material interests they were fighting for and they happened to be the same.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Marek's saying, because I've made this point a couple times now on the show, but like the whole Bernie messaging of like, well, you fight for someone else as hard as you fight for yourself. That was some fucking bullshit. Yeah. And I've been saying this of like this whole moral empathy appeal is not effective. And I'm not trying to assume too much, but I feel like that's what you're getting at. And also this whole romanticized fucking weirdo, Marxist old shit of like, old school solidarity or whatever, like something weird, where it's very romantic or whatever. But like, I'm just talking about what COH is just saying too. It's like all our cost of living is going up across the board, everything. You know what I mean? The necessities are all being price gouged, right? Because they're inelastic goods. Of course they would do that. They'd be stupid not to do that. Yeah. So that is what I'm talking about of like, hey, I'm getting fucked. I want them to stop fucking me. And also you're getting fucked. And you basically our interests are temporarily aligned. Maybe we disagree about a whole bunch of other shit as far as like, I don't know who you fuck or whatever, a bunch of other social shit or culture war shit. But like that is, there's a parallel there. And I feel like that's the thing. If there's any sense of solidarity, I feel like we talk about this, like that old, traditional leftist view of solidarity is stupid, weirdo, like childish shit. And like, we're just talking about like, out of self-interest.
COH hit the nail on the head there. He brought up two very trad concepts. One is the tax revolt, which is that, since human history, since taxes were invented, that's been a thing where you get people who very disparate people to come together, and bread riots. Those things happen. And like, and I think the important part that COH laid out is that it's not pre-planned. It's not like, we've run the solidarity thing into the ground, but it's hilarious, this idea. It's like, you take care of this, and then in exchange I'll agree that I like polyamory. Now that's retarded, and that's like
of course.
But what COH is saying is like, everybody just gets so mad that you band together and you attack this thing that's fucking you over, and that is I agree, that is possible. However, I think that it politically, like that happens when you bottomed out and things have gotten so bad that really the political structures have failed already, and you're going in a new direction.
Right, we're not there yet in your mind, right?
No, and I think that if this goes into my biases, but like for me, a cool luck party would be better, and it wouldn't be entirely working class people, but it would
include like podcasters.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we gotta take it somewhere for sure.
Now we're talking.
That sounds good to me.
But you want to talk about? You want to talk about kulaks? Look at Chapo's like income and things they own. Things like ContraPoints lives off a YouTube channel, which like earns income like when they sleep. This would be we would have all the podcasters, all the YouTube stars, all the Jackman writers. These would be all the base
influencers.
We have a shared material interest. We need to band together.
That's something that people have been talking about that lately, and I'm not going to name names, but you know exactly what I mean. It's been pissing me off lately. Where you have these people who are like, well, you know, really the real problem is the treatment of workers in academia, and like it's incredible to me that this fucking guy running putting in insulation and running wire is making, you know, like my dad has worked his ass off. He's in his 60s now. You know, my stepfather, same way in the trades, busted their ass 10 and 12-hour days, you know, for their whole fucking adult lives. And like now they make more money than a goddamn associate professor or whatever, assistant professor, whatever they call that stupid bullshit. And
an adjunct?
Yeah, and they're just sitting back plotting ways where they can just steal shit from the kulaks like they always fucking do. If you organize a political party around dealing with those people, I'm on board with it. I don't care what it is.
Okay, I can work in something here. I got to do it. I got to do a hit on Matt Stoller because he won't come on our show.
Okay,
so I really want Matt Stoller to come on our show. When the recent controversy came up about that, one of the things that came up was that these elevator repairmen make like six figures, right?
Yeah.
And they really do. And the reason why they brought that up as an example, because Matt Stoller like wrote a paper, has been talking all year about how there's a weird anomalous monopoly on elevator repair. And by the way, like you have to have one of these things that really sort of makes you a PMC. So like you can be a PMC redneck construction guy, which what makes you really in terms of like this, in terms of like your paycheck and wealth and stuff. One of the things that puts you in that role is if you need a fancy certificate,
guild,
credentials,
right. So like some guy who comes here from Honduras can't be a safety officer on a construction site. So you know what? That safety officer now all of a sudden they make like what they would have made like if wages never went down and stuff. So they make them fucking six figures. The elevator repairman, you can't just like hop. You need that. You need that special piece of paper. So even though he's like a dumb redneck or whatever, like he makes fucking six figures.
We need elevators. We don't need sociology professors. That's the most important thing. Why didn't the conversation end right there with all these big brains?
The point is, there's a lot of things going on in that building, and the HVAC guy, he don't make six figures because you know why? Because anyone can come here and do it. And the other thing with this that sort of, and being adjunct sucks. I'm sure it does. One of the things that's sort of implied though in this, and there's no way I can't make a hard statement about this, but what we all know is sort of like being like an intern at a movie like a movie company. I'm sure it sucks. You don't get paid. What the fuck? But guess what? There's endless people that want to do it because
it's a great job.
If you get the call up, right? So like if you being adjunct sucks, but if you get the call up, if you get that tenure, baby, you're good for life. You never have you don't have to worry again. Mostly, as long as you don't break the Pence rule. But those were the two sort of side things I want to drop in there.
Yeah, but you're overselling it because being an adjunct professor sucks. But you know what? Those guys don't want to turn a socket wrench. They don't want to fucking do that.
Some of them would have if things had gone a different way. The point is, it's one of these jobs where there's like, well, here's another example of this. So the people you see, they're like I'm working class. I'm a grad student at Harvard. I make like $8,000 a year.
Yeah.
Like, look at my paycheck. It's right here. It's like $50. Like, how can you say I'm an elite?
Yeah. I don't look. Honestly, personally, I don't really care too much about the meaningfulness of work. Maybe I should, but I don't care too much about that. But I feel like I don't know. It's a
black hole to get into these definitions.
I think it's hard.
I've never argued definitions with people.
I think it's hard to do that. Yeah, it gets very subjective, but I get why you would make that case. But like, I feel like basically like it's sort of the implied thing to me is like, oh, these blue collar people, that, you know, like I was just pointing out that there's two different types of people that could fit under that, you know, general nebulous description of this type of worker, right? A trade worker, whatever, and they make different amounts of money. Like the whole implied thing to me isn't to be like, oh, this adjunct is actually not as rich as you think. I think the point of it is to be like, these blue collar people are fucking loaded. That's the point I take away. The implied thing is like, oh, all these people that voted for Trump are fucking boat dealership owners. And that's what I take away. I'm like, oh, you're a fucking snake. You're a fucking fucked up motherfucker. I mean, this is the thing. It's like, it's the obfuscation. That's what I take away from it. I don't want to get into the weeds of like,
oh, well,
they
want to take it. They want to take that shit. It's a target.
They ended that with that donation graph. Everybody see that one?
Oh my god!
Oh yeah,
dude.
the bubbles.
That was a mind fuck.
No, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I missed that one.
It was like jobs that gave money to people from each industry that gave money to Biden or gave money to Trump. And on Biden's camp, it was like CEOs, bankers, like new media people, like all this bullshit. Like, and then at the bottom, it was like Trump's people, and it was like welders, mechanics, etc., that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yo, all the time, these motherfucking leftists would be in my fucking mentions being like, oh, why do you think that Trump is a fucking, you know, his base is all rich people? Like, why do you think that there's any working class people there? That they're all fucking loaded. It was just it was the most, and they'd always cite the same fucking stats from like New York Times from 2016, whatever. I mean, I don't know what changed between then and this thing that just came out, but like, it's a load of bullshit. It's a load of fucking bullshit.
There's certainly there's still so there's a lot of like there is a certain amount of rich people in the Trump campaigns. There's just to cover our ass here. So there's
resource extraction.
So there's like there's oil companies. So oil companies, like they're like one of the only people that like international business is not. So the most important thing to oil companies is just getting the permit to drill, right? So that's all they really care about. And they've had a long relationship with the Republican Party, and to them, Trump is just, well, he's their candidate, so we'll go for him. There's also boomers that are sort of like boomers that sort of like in denial about cultural things. They think this is a lot of the Q people. They think Trump was going to just flip a switch and like make a lot of these.
Hillary,
the whole Hillary and Obama thing. This is a side note. Like to me, like if you're Trump and you're sort of complaining about and I hate Obama. But like if you're in office 2 or 3 years and you're still complaining about Obama and all this stuff, it's like, well, that's kind of your problem, not my problem.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure his people are fucking with you and all this stuff, but like
wiretapping, Obamagate.
Yeah, but like you need to deal with that on your own. Like you don't, like that has nothing to do with me.
If you're gonna be like a politician that I think is powerful and enough to make a change, you should be able to like thwart that or usurp it.
I don't know if he can. I don't know if he can. I feel like that's
no, but like the Obama shit or whatever. Like you, like I don't want to hear you bitching about it. Like you should be able to usurp it if you're gonna be someone who's like the lion or whatever, you know.
Don't talk to me about it. See, a politician is like an attorney, right? And so this is one of the, like this is one of the things that goes back to Rome. A politician is supposed to be like attorney. What they do is like they're a locus of other people's interests, right? It's like if your attorney's like, well, I couldn't make it to court because I couldn't pay my bills or because this enemy I have is fucking me up. Well, that like
fuck you, dude.
Yeah,
I get what you mean. Yeah, I don't think there's anything you can do about it. I mean, there's a power dynamic where there's nothing you can do about it. It's stacked against you. But I get what you mean. Like, why bitch about me? Why are you telling me? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what am I supposed to do?
I think that shit's just to like get your base fired up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, get him, get him mad.
I think he genuinely like felt people would be like these people were coming after. They're supposed to. Yeah. They're the other party.
He's not used to this. He's been a guy he's run his own companies and shit like that, and he was on reality TV.
I think he genuinely wanted sympathy for this.
Like sympathy for being persecuted, presidential harassment, like
presidential harassment. He even made a term for it. Yeah,
I did. I was feeling for him. It was cruel what they did to my boy. They massacred my boy. I agree. I mean, I guess there is no point in him bitching about it, but there was this thing that I noticed on the left where they're just like, oh well, he should have fucking, went fucking Chad mode and just fucking stopped all the fucking rigging and all that. I'm like, you can't do that. You can't just like, what?
Yeah, he should have just logged into like the Twitter mainframe and just like decided to change the algorithm, and he should have just killed everyone at every news agency. Like, what?
Drew the sword. Yeah,
I don't think he should have done that. But I think like if anything was going to happen with the election, like there are some pretty dramatic things that he would have needed to do.
I'm just saying, like, even Bernie said, like, there's not shit. The president is very limited against global forces, the MIC.
Yeah, but there are things he can do. He can do.
I'm talking people in fucking handcuffs at polling locations level shit. Like that's what, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I said that at the time. They said you should just send the DOJ in there and just start arresting people. And if it doesn't work, well, who cares? You're going to be out of office anyways.
Well, when the pandemic started, that is when he needed to start taking action. He should have figured out. I'm sure there's some way that the president could just give money to people without any
straight up.
Not necessarily even legally. Just get the Fed to print out checks and send it. He should have done that.
Company in the mail. Yeah, brown bag in the mail.
He should have done that. He should have fought the lockdowns harder than he did. He should have done all this military shit he's doing now. He should have done that before. Things like that he could have done. But you want to get to the point where you're not down to 20,000 votes in Wisconsin mattering or whatever. That's what he had to do, really.
Right. So, like, ideally you do the the whole thing is he didn't have enough big enough patronage network. Didn't have enough people that relied on him.
Well, that's a good spot to end it. Yeah. Yeah. I think we got a good amount in.
Perfect note.
Yeah. This is perfect. Yeah. Really appreciate you guys coming on.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
Right
thanks,
on.
guys.
Yeah.
Let's
do it again
stop my
sometime.
recording. All right. Sweet.
All right.